I would like to have a brief round of introductions with the participants as well here after Jose and I introduce ourselves quickly. So I will start. My name is Kaya Hein. As you can see, I am project leader on the green transition in terms of biodiversity, climate change adaptation, health quality in the subjects of the Agenda 2030. And I'm also in charge of the various things and projects we've related to the Agenda 2030, especially the self-assessment tool. I will give Jose the word briefly.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Jose Sanchez, and as you can hear, I'm not in my best shape today, so I'm a bit struggling here. I will even go to the doctor immediately after this meeting, so Kaya will be leading really this meeting here. I myself inside AIVP, I'm responsible for the department that is developing the content of AIVP, including also the Agenda 2030 and all the elements associated to it, such as our tool, and also for the coordination of projects, whether it is European or international. And we look forward to hearing to your comments and your feedback and see how you can use this tool that we have developed with a lot of effort, but also with a lot of expectation. So looking forward to this.
Thank you, Jose. We're also joined by two other members of the AIVP, Annabelle, who's hidden behind the AIVP mask, and who's helped us a lot in terms of the communication and development of the platform. And Lucille, who is joining us, but is in charge of the Prix Antoine Ruffnac. So I will let, if either of you want to say something, I will let you take the word. Otherwise, I will move on to the other participants.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Happy to meet you. I take the opportunity of this webinar to learn more about the self-assessment tool of the agenda, because I'm just in AIVP since a few months ago, so I participate today.
Thank you, Lucie. Then I will just go down the line of people that I see in the order that I see. Noemi, just a quick introduction, your name, your position, your structure.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today and to join this meeting. I'm from the Port of Taranto, and I supported AIVP in the preparation of this activity, even if not so, I was not so good in supporting maybe at the beginning, because I need time and concentration on better understanding the functioning of the tool, and I'm here to understand, to better know, and to contribute to its development. Thank you.
Thank you, Noemi. Maria Sol.
Good morning. I am from Venice Port Authority. I'm here. Federica Bosello will come in a minute, and we enjoy the meeting too. Also, for the Venice Port Authority, it's an important moment to understand better this important tool. We are working to the second edition of our sustainability report, and our proposal is to integrate to create a network between these two instruments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Marta. We cannot hear you. I think your microphone is on, but I cannot hear you. Yes, no.
I'm sorry, in the meantime, I would like to introduce also Costanza Rapone, that is engaged from the Venice Port Authority for the Society PTS class that work with us for the second edition and also for the first edition of the report of sustainability. And so we think that it's important that also PTS class understand how the AIVP tool works.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Constanza. Marta, please go ahead. Sorry. It doesn't work. Okay, we will move on and otherwise come back to you at the end. Yes. Ezgi, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Okay, Andrea.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you see me? Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, I'm a trainee for the Genoa Port Authority. Outside this trainee, I'm a master degree student for management for energy and sustainability. So I'm starting this path with the Port Authority in order to study the sustainability and how ports are complying with the norms and the practices that authorities are putting on in order to be compliant with their sustainability goals. So today I'm here just to learn and to understand something more about this issue. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Port Authority of, sorry, which Port Authority?
Genoa Port Authority.
Okay.
Genova, Italia.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Jane?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jane with the St. John Port Authority in Canada. I'm the Decarbonization and Environment Manager here, and we're excited to learn more about this tool. And also happy to say our municipal city is signing on as an AIVP member this year, so that's a big win for us.
Glad to hear it. And Alan? Okay, otherwise, Ezgi, I see that you're here now, so.
Yeah, hiya.
Hi.
My name is Ezgi. I know AIVP since 2020. I met with the family, in fact, while motivating Mersin Chamber of Shipping to be a member of this association. I'm a PhD student now, and my thesis is about the impact of Green Deal on ports. So I'm really excited to be part of this conference today. Thank you.
Glad to hear it. I will take over sharing the screen now, and then we can get started with the presentation. So as I've said, the intention is to be very interactive. So if you do have immediate questions, we will generally try to make several breaks for questions and answers. But if it's a pressing matter, please don't hesitate to interrupt me either. Okay, I think I have control of the screen. So let's get started. Right. I just want to do a brief recap. I think for some of you, you might have already heard all of this during the Venice conference, but it will be a quick recap. So hopefully it won't be too long. The linkages between the Agenda 2030 and the self-assessment tool. So for those unfamiliar with the Agenda 2030, it is a tool, or the framework that leads the AIVP nowadays, really, and is based on the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. And we presented it in 2018 to our members, and it contains 10 goals and 47 sub-goals, and all of these are present in the self-assessment tool. The aim is really to support our members in the implementation of the Agenda 2030 to the best of our abilities, and therefore we really wanted to ensure that there's this link between having our Agenda 2030 represented, but also the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So I will show this to you later, but we take into account all of this. The Agenda 2030 by the AIVP was presented in 2018 in the Quebec conference during the 16th World Conference of Cities and Ports, and ratified in June 2019 during the AIVP Days in Riga. It was ratified by 50 port city organizations and more than 80 organizations in total, so not necessarily port and city authorities, but also other entities. So some lovely pictures here to accompany this important moment. The 10 goals include climate change adaptation all the way to protecting biodiversity and cover a very wide range of subjects. Just like the UN SDGs cover a wide range of subjects, so does our Agenda 2030, since it is an adaptation. And we feel that all of these are important in achieving the sustainable development of port cities, both jointly, but also for each port authority as well as each local authority. We are aware that there are generally some some objectives that are more critical to each port or local authority than another. So also in terms of trends and timelines. However, we very much recommend using a holistic approach to these 10 objectives in order to advance in a sustainable manner. So there we go. This here is to really show how each of the goals of our Agenda 2030 links to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We developed the Agenda 2030 in collaboration with the UN Habitat, with UNESCO, with UN Global Compact, and the European Commission. So it is not something we have done on our side alone and then published, but rather that we've really done in preparation and collaboration and much detailed research. José spent a lot of time finding the connection points and the important aspects of each UN Sustainable Development Goal and translating it to the agenda with some of our other colleagues, but he is here, so I will give him all the credit for now. And the agenda has been a basic foundation for us in terms of trying to reconnect the port and city, which is one of the main aspects of the AIVP's 35-year journey and ambition, is to really connect the port, the city, but also with the citizens. And in this sense, we believe that the Agenda 2030 is really a framework to do this, and several of our members agree. So on the right, we have a list of a few of these members. Several others have done so as well. But the aim here is to really show that this has been accepted on a global level. Just one more thing before I move on. The important aspect as well is to note that it is not simply statements, but we have a very distinct framework behind all of these agenda goals, which we ensure through good practices. So we have a guide of good practices, which will also come into play with the self-assessment tool, as well as articles we publish in our newsletter, as you all probably know. And the aim is to really showcase how other ports, how other cities, how other companies are doing in order to advance the goals that we've put forward, or the sub-goals, and to give ideas to our members as to how they can slowly but surely advance in terms of having examples from similar ports or cities or other entities. So yes, one last thing I wanted to add here. And so how does the Agenda 2030 connect to the self-assessment tool? Precisely. So the idea of the self-assessment tool emerged in 2020 when we realized, after benchmarking of the certification tools and self-assessment tools in existence, that there is no holistic port city self-assessment tool for the subjects that we have, especially for the subjects that we have identified in the Agenda 2030. Often these are not inclusive of subjects that we deem crucial, such as the port city culture or port city interface, for example. And so we thought it is important, in order to accompany our members in their progress, to have such a tool. Naturally, as you all know, COVID came in between and decelerated a bit our ambitions. However, we have finally released it in 2023 during the Venice conference very proudly. And this year we're hoping that a lot of our members use this tool in order to help their own strategy, as was mentioned before, in their reporting, or in order to simply assess themselves. This tool was not developed either on our own. We really had discussions with a variety of our members to understand their needs and their requests in terms of what this tool should contain, because we didn't want to make it just another tool that they have to use, but rather that would be useful to them. So it's a continuous process along the entire creation of the tool to discuss, to give them, to obtain feedback, to give them the demo versions, and so on. And it's important to note that this is a tool that is free of charge service for only our members. So it is not accessible to the public. It is something that we have deemed very important to give our members, but for now it is only for our members. So I will shift here to showing you a live version, but here are the two links that are key, I think, to this entire presentation. Before I will make the transition to my other screen, but if there are any questions at the moment, please let me know. No questions, all right.
I give the link in the chat directly if you want to click on it, it's possible.
Thank you, Annabelle. Okay. So here you see our beautiful AIVP website. And I would just like to show you how to get from this primary login, which I assume most of you use and know, to the agenda, or to the self-assessment tool. So in order to get there, you have to click on our initiatives, the Agenda 2030, and then self-assessment of the Agenda 2030 by AIVP. Here you have a bit of an overview regarding the tool in general. You can then click on this button here in order to access it. And we already have a PDF version of a user guide, which explains a bit the step-by-step process as well, in case you need a refresher or some of your colleagues need help. We are also always available to answer questions, and soon we will be also publishing a video tutorial here, which will hopefully be helpful and address all your needs. I think before we move on to the actual self-assessment tool, there's a few points that I want to clarify here. In order to access the self-assessment tool, please update your password for the AIVP website area. You can do so by clicking on First Login or Forgot Your Password after clicking the Member Area button. The same password and username will be used in order to access the self-assessment tool. So it's important to do this and update it, because otherwise you cannot access the self-assessment tool. Normally, you should then be able to access it once you've updated it. If there are any problems, feel free to contact us directly and we will resolve this one-on-one. So after clicking on this button here, you will then arrive at this page. Here, I would like to take a moment to also highlight the fact that in our development of the platform itself and in the development of the tool, we have gotten support from the French government in terms of their Maritime Intervention Fund. And so they're also very excited to see how we can help our members with this tool. So now, when it comes to the first connection, I would like to clarify one thing. All website links that you can click on in the self-assessment will lead you, in the most part, back to our webpage. So please remember your password, because that will be helpful in looking at both sources, because they're very much linked. This can be just a useful reminder that having your connection is important for this tool. We also recommend that as an entity, so for a Port Authority, you use a single account and that everyone uses the same access, so that everyone can see what others have already answered to the self-assessment tool. And there is no overlap in terms of two people working on it separately and then not being able to join their answers together. The tool can support several people accessing it at the same time and with the same connection, so that is not a problem. But we do not expect this tool to be answered completely by a single person, or if yes, they will have to look for some information from their colleagues, I believe, because it is very holistic and generally very difficult to answer alone. So during the first login, you will arrive here, and here you will have to choose between what type of entity you are. Currently, we only have the Seaport or Maritime Port version available. The intention is to have the Riverport version available for June. Hopefully, we will have an update for you soon regarding this. Also important, all of our tools, all of our information is always available in the 3 official languages, English, French, and Spanish. So even the platform, you can change it while using it to a different language if you're more at ease in a different language. And the answers will be saved. Jose, did you want to say something?
I just wanted, perhaps if you can clarify the password for the link for the login into the platform. If you can explain again that part. When you click in the link in the official AIVP website, yes, and it opens a new tab, you go into the onboarding, but you have to log in. Which password do they use here? It is the same password as for the AIVP website. So the same username, which is your
email address that you've also used for the AIVP website, and the same password.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. So we will pretend that that I am a Seaport entity, although I'm not, but this will be what you will likely click on. And here we have a brief part of a questionnaire to give in some of your basic information regarding your location. So for example, here we can say France, which jurisdiction the port falls under. So it can be municipality, state, private company, or other. Let's say municipality for now. If you have clicked other, you would have to fill this in. Since not, it's okay. The location in which the port is situated, so that we also have an idea. Let's say coastal simply. The size of your port in hectares. I will use random answers here. If you do have specific suggestions and want to see how it would look like, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I will just move on. The importance is also to have a vision for us over our members' standing. This will be asked once, and then you will not need to update it again. The board configuration is also something you can fill in. I will just write it as test, as well as the governance model. So in the first connection, you will have these questions that appear. Please answer them to your best of the abilities. You will not have to answer them again. And it is not graded. This is solely in order to obtain information from our users, and that in a secondary step, we can help you and give you advice if needed. Once you've logged in, once you've confirmed that first step, you will arrive on the dashboard. Here.
I think Maria Sol has a question.
Yes, Maria Sol.
Sorry, Kaya. I would like to know if we have to produce text of...
You just muted yourself. Sorry, Maria Sol.
Sorry. I would like to know if we have to produce text to explain our governance and I don't remember the second things, or if we can use also link to our website, for example.
If you have on your website an explanation, it would be best if you copy and paste that text in there. If that way we're not lost as to which part.
Do you prefer text?
It would be best,
okay.
But as I said, you can also come back. I just went back. If you click on structure after you've done the initial, you can still modify your answers. They're not set in stone. However, so if it's just about moving forward quickly, you can do it. However, I think for us, it's simpler than if I'm skipping forward a bit, but if after you've gotten the results and you see that you would like a benchmark, let's say, to help you improve on, I don't know, on the energy transition, that we also have some background information in order to give you similar good practices in similar size ports or in similar locations, or depending on the subject matter that you would like, we have this information readily available so that you don't need to repeat yourself either. You're on mute, so unless if you want to add anything.
No, okay, thank you.
Okay. I can add this a little bit more context as well.
Yes.
You have to consider that our expectation is also that gradually this tool becomes a bit of a quite significant database for sustainable practices in port cities, in the sense that we can see an evolution, so that at the end of the year, we can actually make an assessment in terms of how port cities around the world are moving forward. And for that, if you can add that your governance model is in a certain direction, we may be able to find certain correlations of goals that might not be moving forward so well with a specific governance model or with a specific physical configuration of the port. That is why it could be very useful if there is a very short description. We don't want you to work too much of these elements that we ask here. You will see that they are quite straightforward, very easy, and you usually have them even in your own website.
Yes. I will get back to the structure in just 1 second. I just want to introduce the dashboard quickly. So on the dashboard during your first connection, this section here will be say no questionnaires in progress yet, so you can click on it to start. Once you have started, the ones that you are in progress of completing will appear here so that you can directly jump back into where you left off. Here, you can also click on this in order to get back to the Agenda 2030, which is on our website. So once again, you will come back to this website, but then to the Agenda 2030, our 10 commitments. So here you can then explore it more in detail if needed. And here is perhaps one of the very critical parts about interacting with us. As soon as you arrive, you will always see any updates regarding the tool, what we have done on our side. If there's a modification to a question, for example, or we have updated the links, that you will know about it. So our aim is to be transparent in how we're working, that nothing surprises you in terms of updates to the platform. So this is here, you can always find these notifications then in this section. I will just show this briefly as well. If you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to contact us. If it's even just about definition being unclear or just about you're not being sure how to answer, please feel free to contact us. If you have any suggestions as well on how to improve, or if we've missed something that is critical, critical in your opinion, please let us know. You can just click on these buttons and they will take you to a formula which you can fill in and send us a message directly. Once again, here you have it in all languages. Here you have our social platforms, although not as important perhaps to the goal. And here as well, you can always click at the bottom in order to give any questions or suggestions. Unless there are any questions, I will move on to the structure. Please feel free to interrupt. I do not see your raised hands at the moment, so otherwise my colleagues will have to let me know. Okay. So the structure section. The structure section is part of the initial questions that we've asked in order to get an overview of your entity, of your structure, how, in which context it's situated. And the intention is that you only truly need to complete it once, unless there's a very big change in your structure and then you want to modify 1 or 2 points. And as Josie and I were explaining, the intention is not to grade you at all on this. There's no points associated with this. It will not appear on any reports. It is for us in order to understand how we can help you, how the trends are going, and if these correlate with the location perhaps or with the governance model. You do not have to be extremely detailed. For example, at points we ask about percentages. These do not need to be 23.41%, but it is fine if you round up or down and give us estimates. The question is also about the influence of the Port Authority often. So here you see about the economic influence, about the jobs generated by the port activity, employees of the Port Authority, also which associations it is linked to, and then in which sectors the Port Authority is, well, active, let's say. So is there, and how it is constructed also. So here there's more of the questions about the construction of the port area in terms of, is there any agricultural land, protected areas, and so on. I will not go through it. We also ask about what are the main natural impacts onto the port, so climatic phenomena. And then here was what I mentioned before, what are the port activities, ferries, and so on. And lastly, a personal question in order to help you is how you have tried to implement the UN Sustainable Development Goals or the Agenda 2030 on a general basis. So once you've completed this, even if it's just in part, for example, here, I'm just putting random numbers, as I've said, you can save it either at the bottom here and then go back to the dashboard and start a questionnaire, or you can also save it at the top here, which will follow you on the way down. I would like to ask once again if you have any questions regarding the structure or any comments.
I don't know if at some point perhaps we're going a bit too fast with
Yeah.
so many information. So if you also feel like it, please let us know. We will be also repeating or going a bit more slowly.
Yes. One final point that I've perhaps mentioned in passing, but perhaps not insisted on enough, is the fact that this tool, well, the self-assessment tool is really just about assessing your entity for yourself. Although the AIVP has access to these answers, we will not be publishing them at all on a entity by entity basis. We will have visibility of these trends, but your answers are anonymous as long as you wish them to be. We have also mentioned that based on the structures, we can then perhaps put into contact similar structures or mention similar structures to each other. This will only be done with your approval as well, obviously. But the aim is really to just have an overview of trends and understanding you and your structures so that we can more simply help you afterwards. Right, so I will move on to the goals if no one has any questions. Okay. So the goals are where the true questionnaires lie. This is as an English expression where the meat and potatoes can be found, the real content. Here you will see the 10 goals of the Agenda 2030 represented overall. So as you can see, here are the 10 goals. You can also see which UN SDGs are linked to which goals. So you can skim over them and you will see it in color if that is important. You will also see whether you have done the questionnaire at all or not at all or somewhat. So these colors here, this red will change. If you have not accessed this questionnaire and not answered to any of the questions, it is in red. If you have started the questionnaire but not validated it, so not finalized it, it will be in blue. And once you validated it, it will be in green. Once it is validated, you cannot modify it again until next year. So please be sure before you validate it, either by goal. And we recommend once you validated each of these goals, you then validate it for the year. That way you will be sure to have answered everything. I will be repeating this probably once or twice because I think this is an important point to make. The validation, you need to validate each goal in order to see your results as well. But please do so only once you are certain. There's also a progress bar based on the completion of the 10 goals, but this is in no way related to the score you have. It is just about the progress. Right, I have chosen to present goal 2 to you now in order to go into the details of how the questionnaire works. If we have sufficient time and you would like to look at another goal together later on, please bear this in mind and we can do so later on. But in order to explain, I think goal 2 is a good example and something that most of you have interest in, I believe. Josie Annabelle, I do see something appeared in the chat. Can you let me know if it is important? That way I don't interrupt the screen sharing.
I think Marisol would like to know if they could have the structure of the tool to work on it before filling it online. I'm not so sure. You mean like a print screen of each one of the goals?
Yes. I'm sorry, Kai, I wanted to interrupt you, so.
No, please do. So you mean this, the structure, this one, correct?
Yes, if it's possible to have a PDF or something, just to find all the information and fill in the right.
I mean, these are always modifiable, so there is no problem in also just filling it out once. I believe if you print the website page, you can also save it as a PDF and address it. We haven't created a button specifically for this page, although we have done so for the goals and results.
But in any case, we can add these to the instructions that we have there already in the website. So we can add this print screen so you can also see it if you want.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Just to share also with our director, president, or our board, the information we will put inside the tool.
Sounds good. I will prepare a screenshot or a print screen so that
it's important not to scare them.
Yes. But yes, as I was saying, unless there's any other questions, I will move on to the goals. Good. So when you click on one of these goals, you will enter the goal and find more information, first of all, regarding the importance of the goal to, sorry, didn't mean to highlight, the importance of the goal in regards to port authorities generally. Also the link to each of the UN Sustainable Development Goals as said, and the button to validate goal 2 in this case here. I would just like to highlight again, when you're on the goals page generally and you see the 10 goals, you're validating the year. So all of them will turn green in one go. If you're in a goal and you validate it, only that goal turns green and you cannot change it anymore. I hope that is clear. And you will find the sub goals once you've clicked on the goals. Each of these sub goals has a variety of varying amount of questions. Within the entire questionnaire of the 10 goals, we have 120 questions. These are quantitative and qualitative and very diverse. There's not the same exact amount of questions per goal. However, I would like to highlight that each of the goals count for the same amount of points or in the final results section. I will come back to this later on, but we have not made one goal more important than the others. We believe that all 10 goals are of equal importance. So once you're ready to do so, you can then just click on the goal that you wish to do. So for me, I have the sub goal that you wish to do. For me, I've chosen the promoting dialogue and cooperation between socioeconomic stakeholders to identify potential synergies and encourage better management of natural resources. And you will get to the questions linked to the sub goal. These questions are for the majority qualitative questions, although we do have some quantitative. And you will find 3 types of questions. One where you can click on several answers. One where you can only click on one answer. And there are some times where I think I will find an example in a few moments, but where you have the option of other, please explain, and below you will find an open box in which you can then include your explanation if you wish to do so. So these are the 3 main types of questions you will see. If it is other, please explain, and you click on that, there are no points in the box below, but the points are counted directly in when you click the other, please explain in the answers. So here, for example, you can click on several, just to give you an idea. And what you will also find is that there are related readings on the side of some of these questions. The idea is to here link back to our good practices and the articles we publish on a regular basis. See here, I'm not connected for the moment, so it is not allowing me to do this. But the idea would be to get ideas for your answers or how to improve what others have done just in general. Sorry, let me connect. That way you can also get an idea. Okay, well, it won't let me connect at the moment, so normally it works fine. I'm not sure why. I must have put in the password wrong at the moment, but it is not the most important part. The important part is really to explain that you can get these ideas and that these related readings are available. So once you have chosen your answers here, you can either save and quit, which will take you back to the specific goal page with the sub goals, or you can save and move on to the next section. By saving, you are not validating. This is important because you can then come back and modify your answers later on if you wish to discuss them one more time with a colleague, or you aren't sure of the answer you put in. You can always come back and then click on it and modify it as long as it is not validated.
If I can just make a small comment on this,
yes.
I think this is a very important thing that people should consider. When you say this fact that when you're saving, you're not completely validating. Hence, really what we encourage is that the person who is leading the process of sustainable reporting, sustainable development reporting, or these kind of issues can play around a little bit with the platform. You can explore it, you can see how the answers are indicated, what can you choose and so on. And then later you can do, let's say, the definitive or serious validation, where you probably have already contact with your other colleagues in other departments, so you have all the information and so on. So this is important so that you don't feel the pressure that when you are clicking in an answer, you're already done, okay? Please always keep this in mind.
Yes, yes. As I mentioned, and as Jose mentioned just now, the aim is really to have also a holistic approach, so that it is not just about looking at all the different aspects, but also about discussing with all the different sectors of the entity, whether it is those in charge of the energy transition or those in charge of community engagement, that there is a discussion and that it is a revision, let's say, of the past year and how you have done. So just moving on here, for example, you can choose other, please specify, as well as, let's say, these two answers. And then here you can explain. So the question was, does the Port Authority support circular economy projects? And the answers were through community investments, by working with socioeconomic stakeholders, by having a program to encourage circular economy, by having a joint plan with the city to reuse industrial waste. And if you do so in another manner, let's say, I cannot think of an example off the top of my head, but if you have a good practice, let's say, and you want to explain it, or you have a link, in this case, a link could also work. You can always explain it here. Yes, by reusing by repurposing ships, let's say. I know this is not a complete answer, however, it is what I have at the moment in my mind. And then you can just keep going. If you choose, if one of the questions is something you haven't considered yet, please select none of the above. We are not judging you in any way, shape, or form for the answers you select. It is really about identifying how you are doing at the moment. So it is probably better for everyone involved to be honest. There is no way we are checking you and double checking the facts that you're putting in. However, what we would like to see is also how you improve over the years. And we know that the goals are often for 2030 or beyond. So we do not expect you to have completed everything. Otherwise, our self-assessment tool would be a bit useless if everyone has 100% in every goal. So the aim is really to slowly improve. What I've also mentioned at the beginning was, with our notifications, we will let you know if we are making modifications to the questions. We are hoping that in 2-3 years, we can become a bit, have a bit higher expectations for our members in terms of the questions we ask, so make them a bit more difficult, or make the suggestions a bit more challenging. For example, in this next question, what is the percentage? Bless you. What is the percentage of port operation waste diverted from disposal, reusage, recycling? Perhaps now it is only 10 to 20%, but perhaps by 2029, it will be more than everyone will be clicking 40+. So perhaps we will have shifted the question and shifted the answers to include 60, 70, 80% in order to meet the trends that we are seeing within our members.
Kaya, sorry. I think it could be useful if you explained also the issue of how in some questions, the more answers you have, the better score you're going to have. And also the issue of, a higher percentage will mean a higher score.
Yes, I have this in my slides. I was about to get to it. What I wanted to do just quickly before moving to this point. So here, for example, you can see that I can select several answers and then here only one. This reflects also the way the scoring system works. Although you cannot see the scoring system here, we are trying to be transparent with the answers or with how the scoring system functions. So I have mentioned that all the goals are worth the same amount. Where's the presentation here? Sorry, here we go. So we have different ways of scoring them. So all the goals are worth the same amount, and we present them through a percentage at the end in the results section, which I will show you next. Each of the questions are generally also worth the same amount. So in general, we have based this on 10 points. And then depending on the amounts of answers, the points per answer vary. So here, for example, we have 6 answers which can score you points, and these are cumulative points. So the more you tick, or the more you check or select, the more points you will have, and this will accumulate. The other version is that there's only one answer, but it is increasing in worth. Generally, we've tried to make these either exponential or very direct. For example, here you can only select one, but if you are there's more yearly budget spent on reduction of energy use or renewable energy or carbon neutrality, then you will score higher. So if it's 10 to 15%, 7.5 points. If it's only 0 to 5%, 2.5 points. If it's none, or if you do not have this data, it would be 0 points. And then the third point in terms of scoring that I would like to highlight is that we have selected 14 questions to be precise, which we as the AIVP deem crucial questions in terms of advancing in the near future the sustainable development aims for ports and city authorities. So these have a higher coefficient, and these might change as time goes on. For the moment, they are not marked. However, if we see that it is a wish of all of our members to mark this somehow, we can take this into account as well. Although the platform itself is how it is in terms of a lot of things, we are capable of still making changes. So this is also why we think it's very important that you give us feedback, that you ask questions. If something is unclear, please let us know. So we can also improve with time and make it more and more useful to you. So these have a higher coefficient, which we have as 1.5 coefficient, which would mean that they're worth 15 points. All the questions in a goal are then calculated as a percentage. So per goal, you will have 1%, and you will have a percentage which is based on these 10 goals, which will give you the overall score. Are there any questions regarding the scoring of these 3 types of questions? Please just speak out, take the word. No? Okay, then I will go back because then
Excuse me, Kaya, I just have only a clarification.
Yes.
It is just about, I noticed that in some questions you put the answer other. So you allow users to provide additional information or additional answers. So in some cases, you also put a weight on that answer. So it is just decided for some goals, for some questions, and not for all, because I had just a few time 2 weeks ago to dive into the website, and I noticed that you have a lot of questions inside each goal, but not all the questions can provide for an open answer. And so it is just a question regarding the structure.
So how we have chosen which questions have open.
Yeah, the ratio that you applied to the questions.
For that one, we didn't apply a specific ratio. We analyzed each question as the AIVP as a whole to assess which ones we think are more likely to have answers that we haven't considered yet, or that are more likely to have more developments in a very short amount of time. I can open one again. I had one open in front of me at one point here. Yes. For the circular economy projects, we've given a few examples. However, perhaps we have missed out on something. And if we see that a lot of members are answering this, we will leave it. If in 2 years it's not the case, we will perhaps remove it. So this is also part of what I'm saying, that it can be improved and it can be changed. And same in reverse would be if you see that there's one question which you think is missing an answer, let's say, or there's several answers that you think could be included, please send us a message with the specific goal and the question so that we can then modify it if needed. If there's enough, we won't react to every single question from our members either, but if we see a trend that let's say 5-10 members are saying this question needs an open answer, or there's an answer missing, we will take this into account. So our thought process here was very much per question and based on the answers we suggested. However, we are only human in the end, so it is possible that we have missed out on something. I hope this answers your question, Noemi. Perfect.
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Okay. In order to explain the next section, if there's no other
Kaya, before you go to the results, I don't know if the others agree, but I think it would be good to see again some of the questions and how the answers, because we saw very quickly only.
Yes.
So if you can just show, I don't know, if the same goal, I think it could be useful.
Yes, sure. I have opened goal 2.3 now, but let's actually take a quick. Is there any preference here? A strong preference for any of these 4 sub goals? Please.
Can you perhaps try, for example, the goal of mobility? I think we
A
have
completely
several
different
options.
goal. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sure. So, well, I will ask the same question. Is there a preferred goal just to, otherwise I will go with mobility as Josie suggested. Okay, I will go with mobility. So here you see that there's less UN SDGs that are directly linked. So there are less pictures here, and there's a different explanation as to why this is important. So if we then go into goal 3.1, it is about encouraging the development of soft, multimodal, and collaborative mobility, especially for commuting. You will see the same types of questions, the same setup. So for example, here we are considering especially the sustainable mobility for workers. If there's financial incentives, for example, as well, to encourage workers not to use the cars, but go for public transport or bicycles if it's possible, or carpooling. And here we have deemed, for example, Noemi, that we might have not considered all options, so please. Other questions here would be, are the infrastructures existing for this type of sustainable commuting? Are there walking areas in which you can access the port? Are there bicycle lanes? Are there public bus stops or train stations or metro stations? And here as well, once again, you will always find, as to our best of our abilities, and we will be putting these up to date on a regular basis, good practices and articles linked that we deem good examples. As we're constantly publishing new articles, and we are currently slowly in the process of updating our good practices, so putting them up to date and then hopefully including new ones. These will likely be updated at least every year, would be our hope. And especially here, if you have an answer that you think could be a very good example, please feel free to send us an email with this example with a brief explanation at the very least, so that either we can include it as an article or as a good practice, depending on the importance. And perhaps you will then see it in the following year related to a specific question. Going on, sorry, I'm just going to drink a sip, sorry.
Yeah, just to insist a bit on one thing that you explained, the principle really is the fact that we were able to identify key actions that can be developed by the Port Authority in order to contribute to a specific goal or sub-goal in this case. So it really adds on in a certain way. So that's why if you select several actions that you have developed, you will have a higher score. It's something as simple as that. That's why, for example, if you can go up, Kaya, to the question 3, does the Port Authority have the necessary infrastructure to ensure the attractivity of sustainable commuting? So that's why it is relevant that, you can select several actions here, and this is going to be reflected in the score that you're going to get regarding this specific goal. In a way, also, the reason why we have followed this model is that if the Port Authority is not doing these actions, can also learn and see options of how you could, in the future develop this action. You can suggest this to the people in charge of these policies and in a way set the path towards a better score, which in the end really means set the path towards more sustainable port-city interactions. That's why we have this cumulative scoring system in these specific questions that is really a bit more on qualitative actions that the Port Authority can do. And in the 4th one again, and you will see this a bit all over, For example, if you use the issue of the energy transition, what is the percentage of green energy that is being used in the port? Of course, you select only one answer because it is only one specific percentage, and the higher the percentage, the higher the score you will obtain. And this is a bit, for example, what we see here for how many Port Authority workers do use sustainable transport to get to their jobs, right? So this is, I think this is important. It's a very basic thing, but this is a bit the basis on how the different questions have been prepared and how they are presented to you.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So I would just like to add on for the qualitative questions, quantitative questions. We've also often used percentages in order to take into account the differences between our members. We're aware that ports and port authorities range in terms of sizes, in terms of finances available, in terms of governance models, and so on. And this is often reflected in what can be contributed, or even in the geographical situation they're located in, perhaps is not as close. And so what we've tried to do is use percentages in order to make our quantitative questions accessible to all types of our members, not just the most advanced ones, because we don't think this is our intention, and this is not our aim either. And it's also a reason why it's often we're not asking for a specific percentage, rather a 10
bracket
or 30 to 40% instead, in order to get ideas and create tiers. Right. I will move back to the goal 2, and I will validate it just so that we can now move on to the results, unless anybody else has any questions regarding.
Just to highlight that, when again what you said, Kaya, when you validate, you can no longer change. So this is really for real.
So I will validate it. I won't be able to change, and as you can see, the color immediately changes. Oops, sorry. Okay, so for example, I didn't save the mobility answers that I had plugged in, but if I had, this would become blue. So I'm just going to save a few so that you can see an example of the different colors. So yes, so this will turn blue. And in the goals section, now you see the 3 types of colors. It's done not validated as explained, and you have answered 1 out of 4. Here you have validated and you cannot see how many you have done. It will take you directly to the results page if you click on here. So I will now move on to the results page. Having completed 1 goal, and I did so very quickly, as you all saw, I didn't really put in too much effort in terms of answering the questions, so the score is not reflective very well. What you will see in the results section are 3 main things. First of all, you will have an overall score of the entire assessment. This is in percentage, and obviously this should only be considered once you validated all the goals or validated the year as a whole, because then it will be reflective of the overarching score. Right now, I've only validated goal 2, and as you can see, I didn't check a lot of boxes, so I didn't score extremely high, which also is reflected in this. I will probably have around 50% yes in goal 2. So this is the second aspect. Per goal, you will also see a percentage, as I explained earlier on. So in goal 2, I'm currently at 49%. So this is a reflection of, in terms of the answers checked, in terms of the progress you can make. Hopefully this percentage will increase every year slowly. You can then click on each of the goals in order to look at your answers from previous years as well, once you've had several years of answering them, so that you can also see, well, you can go back to the questions and see the suggested answers, how you could perhaps take the following steps, as Jose was explaining, either in regards to the answers themselves or in terms of the associated readings, what others have done. So here you can then see the answers, but you won't be able to modify them anymore. So last part that I want to, 2 parts that I still want to highlight here is a spiderweb graph. Once you've validated several goals, it will become like a spiderweb that they've connected and will show you how you are doing holistically. This is to get an overview. Where are your weaknesses? Where are your strengths as a whole? So perhaps you are very strong in the energy transition, climate change adaptation, mobility goals, and a bit weaker in the health and life quality, for example, or the port city interface, so that you will see it on a quick look as a whole where you can strengthen instead of scrolling down per percentage. You can also download the summary of the year's results, which will give you simply the overview of each of the percentages for each of the goals, as well as the spiderweb graph, and not the details. You can get when you download the scores per goal. Lastly,
before you move, I want to highlight this one thing, because I think we had one colleague that was responsible for sustainability reporting.
Yeah.
This is a bit also the purpose of the tool, to help you develop sustainable development reports. I am aware that perhaps there are other aspects that you need to consider, and you may have your own methodology and so on. But indeed, the point is that with this tool, you can get already a very good summary of the key areas in which you have been active. And you can also, I think, use it to structure the report that you might later fill up with specific examples of actions and so on. It is not thought for the moment as a label. We prepare for public sharing. We can discuss this later and get a bit more in detail if you want. But it really provides a structure which has always been the purpose of the Agenda 2030 by AIVP. It was really to help our members to structure their strategies for sustainable port city interaction, and hence with the tool, we also try to support them in their potential reporting in terms of sharing also their advances also.
And obviously, I assume that the people much involved in the completion of the self-assessment will then see the results and likely share them with the superiors. So this is perhaps a very tangible, very easy way in order to gain the information of where you can then perhaps concentrate in the following years in your strategy.
Yeah. On the spiderweb, I would like to add another thing. You know, it's not just a cool gimmick. You know, it's very nice to see it. At least I like it. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I think it's a bit cool to have this spiderweb and so on showing the different schedule. But it is really important that if you use this tool in 2024 and you see that, for example, you have more or less a balanced geometry, but then in goal 10, protecting biodiversity, you're very weak and you have a dent there, it really shows that you're very weak in that particular aspect. So when you overlap the different years, the goal is that you're able to see that this dent is gradually becoming smaller and is becoming closer to a full circle, let's say, so that you really are evolving and improving in the right direction to get, let's say, a bit more of this circle almost.
Yes, and this is the final point that I wanted to come to. Here you can then click your way through. Obviously, we didn't fill out the previous years, but the idea would be that in 2-3 years' time, you can click your way through the different years in order to compare your results. And part that we are currently working on is also to have one of these which will have the graph in order to compare your results per year. This will be should be ready for 2025 once we get there. For the moment, as you're only completing 2024, it's not necessary quite yet, but hopefully in 2025, you will start being able to compare your results and see progress, as José was mentioning.
Yeah, it's also important to highlight this graphic should also appear in your report in the summary of the year's result. The graphic should also appear there. So you have also this graphic support when you want to share this information internally with your, superiors or other colleagues, so that they very clearly see where is the weak spot of the port authority, or even perhaps the other way around, where you're really excelling and you are really the best in terms of sustainable mobility, let's say. So it means that you are really top of the class in that specific area.
Having said all of this, I would also like to remind about something that I said earlier, is that as we near 2030, we will gradually make some questions more difficult based on also the trends we are seeing with our members. So hopefully the acceleration which you're improving will either become more gradual, but you are still constantly improving, or those who are doing exceptionally well all the time will perhaps see a slight dip, but then also improve in the following years, depending on how it's structured. However, what we're aiming for is, we know that not all ports are active in all these 10 goals to the same level, so it is normal to not exactly have a full circle. This would be a very utopian point of view. What we are hoping for is that you still improve holistically gradually. So even if it is a subject that you might not be focusing on in this year, that you perhaps take it into account in the following years.
If I can add here one additional comment. Partly of this becomes on a bit almost of an academic philosophical discussion of how can you define sustainable development. And the problem is that if you decide a closed definition of sustainable development, it will very probably be outdated very quickly. We can only aim to be more sustainable, but it's going to be very hard to really say we have achieved a status of completely sustainable development, because the more knowledge we have about our environment, our planet, the impact that we have in the activities, the different targets and different goals we really establish to us as a society. So if we say that, for example, in 2026, all our members are achieving full score, 100% in our goals, I'm not so sure we would be really being honest with us. So we'll probably have to have a discussion with our members in order to see, okay, do we need to be more ambitious in terms of the definition of sustainable development? But the time will come for that. We are not planning on making any changes in a short term. It will be a much serious and broad discussion. So you can expect the tool to continue as it is for the coming future.
Yes. I would like to open the floor to any questions or comments now, because I know the results and goals sections were quite heavy, and I advanced perhaps a bit quickly. So any questions, comments, please just speak up.
If I can, I want to share my comments because you talked a lot about the sustainability report that all ports, maybe a lot of ports do. In my case, we did the sustainability report in 2022, reporting on 2021. We used the Global Reporting Initiative as an index to consider for reporting. And I think this tool is really, really impressive, because we can do the same work, but on our own, and considering also this type of structure is really relevant. So I think it will be very demanding from one side, because we need to involve different people from different areas. And so it could be the same, because during the report, the sustainability report, we decided to create a working group dedicated on this. So we can do the same, maybe, as a methodology, and we will start gathering and collecting information. And apart from the sustainability report, that it is not an obligation for the Port Authority, but it is a good habit that we should do every year. As Italian ports, we also need to update our 3-year operational plan every year. So I think that, taking into account the possibility to count on an extra image or an extra data that it is really relevant for also just saying, yes, we are going further and we are also achieving new targets, also connecting our activities to each of the goals of the United Nations and AVP. It is really important for us. So this is just my personal comment. I have only one question regarding, always as a part of methodology, the timing for just clicking on the button. So we can have the result for each year, but the final time for completing everything, so starting from the beginning of this process, is at the end of each year for the year.
Yes.
Just to understand the timing for completion and for fulfilling the website. And then I think I told you said that we have 130 questions to fill, to answer.
120.
And then I think we will contact you many times,
Yes,
but it
please.
will be really, really, really useful for us. Thank you.
In terms of the timing, I think the quantitative questions usually refer to the last reporting year as timing. So if you're answering the 2024 questionnaire, it will be for the 2023, I just forgot the word that I just said.
Time frame.
Exactly, that time frame. However, a lot of the other questions, the qualitative ones, are more in flux, I would say, are usually changing or are projects that are in progress over the course of several years. So we do not expect them to change every year either. So we haven't necessarily put that time frame into account, taking it into account. However, I think we can generally say that if you're answering in 2024, the last reporting year is a good reference point. And then you can see how you evolve. We will automatically change the year in the beginning of January in the following year. So 2024, even if you haven't validated all the goals, you won't be able to answer anymore beginning January 2025. So then you will have to restart for the 2025 version. So yes, that is important.
This is great because we started with a bottom-up approach, because in our document, starting from the beginning of the membership with AIVP, we decided to put tables inside our documents, just putting together the UN goals and the AIVP goals, trying to say we're trying to do the best, we are trying to be successful and sustainable, but this is only up to our personal assessment, and it is not something scientific or just objective as this tool can allow us to do. So I think this is a good achievement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Noemi. Are there any other questions, however, before I move on? Anyone else?
Because I'm so proud of the tool, I think I would like to see again one of the goals, because we have only used 2 goals, and I think it would be good to see a more social goal so that the colleagues can also see perhaps a cultural one.
Yes, before we get to that, I would like to just point out 2 things really quickly, and I won't focus on these too much because I think this is something each of you can explore. Sorry. I would just like to introduce the what's next and glossary sections very quickly before we go back to another goal. In the what's next section, you will just find all the good practices, all the articles published by the AIVP in one place, and this will link back to the AIVP website. But this can, even if you don't have a specific question that you were looking at, but are just looking for overarching ideas, you can find them here, as well as some other articles, as we have named them, from different organizations, different reports or declarations that we deem interesting, that are linked here and that you can take a look at as well, depending. We also have established a glossary of definitions of terms that we think could be perhaps understood differently from person to person. So there's 46 definitions. If we're missing out on any, once again, please come back towards us and give us comments. Or if something remains unclear even after reading this, please let us know as well. So you can have a quick search here, or just they're organized alphabetically, so go through it.
This is also very important for the internal discussion. If you're going to, for example, make a report of the year, like the one that can take automatically from here, In case later you're going to share or discuss this report with your colleagues, with the president of the Port Authority, and they ask, okay, but what do they mean by air pollution? Or what do they mean by greenhouse gas emissions and so on? That's why we created the glossary, so that it is clear what we mean when we write what we write, so that it is this shared understanding. Another thing also, even this is a self-evaluation, and it's not thought as a, public document. We understand that it can also lead some conversation with the municipality.
Or with other port community stakeholders.
Or with port community stakeholders, absolutely. Again, this is why the glossary is here, so that it is clear between different actors that might not belong to the port or maritime environment, so that they understand what we mean in these specific goals and questions that we're asking, and why the results perhaps come as they come.
Yes. So I just briefly wanted to introduce these two sections, but I think they're very straightforward in terms of understanding. So please take the time when you're testing the tool to look at them. I will briefly introduce one more goal, and then I have two more slides in the presentation that I do want to go through, and I don't want to go over time. So I will, shall we do port culture and identity if everyone agrees?
Yes, please.
And now it is not loading. Sorry, my internet seems to have interrupted itself.
But actually, this is a good opportunity to show, if you log out, what do you see when you log in again?
Yes, the only thing is I logged in with a different account, I've just realized. But technically, I will actually disconnect and log in with the same account as I was testing it earlier with. That way you can see that it is the same information. One second. Sorry. It is including a space, I believe, when I'm copying the password, and this is not ideal. There we go. There we go. So here, for example, as Jose was mentioning, we had started goal 3, as you might remember, and had done 1. So you will see this, and you can then immediately go to the questionnaire to answer it again. And then you will see what you've done before, or you can choose.
So you can continue where you were.
Exactly.
This is a bit the important part. For example, perhaps there are some things that you already have at the top of your head because your department is the one that is in charge for port culture and identity. Perhaps you can already do this goal. And then when you're going to talk about climate change adaptation, that you need to talk with the engineering department, you perhaps only feel this 3 weeks later, 1 month later, when you had some sort of meeting with them to discuss the questions that are here present.
Or as I've mentioned really an hour ago about now, is that if several people wish to connect, you can perhaps tell them when you connect on the dashboard, you will see that goal 2 is already under work. So please have a look at these answers that I've already put in and see if you agree with them or modify them as need be. So perhaps it's easier. Right, I will quickly present goal 6. For those of you not aware, port culture and identity is a very key topic for the AIVP. It's something that we try to highlight often. So there's also several sub-goals. I will choose 6.2 as an example. Sorry. So does the Port Authority have spaces within the port open to residents to enhance visibility of the port and its activities? Is one question. Are these spaces easily accessible to the residents? And if you have other answers, you can also find them here. And the aim here is to really encourage the openness of the port, let's say, of the permeability of the port. Ports are often very complex and have different zones. So We're not saying that citizens should be have access to all zones. There are certain security measures that we know need to be respected. For example, in industrial environments, or even when a cruise or a ship is at the dock, that citizens can't simply access. But however, it is important that they can see the port, that they can interact with it in some kind of way, whether it is just visibility or even accessing it. And having these spaces where you can see the port be accessible as well. So some of these answers might seem surprising to you, who knows? But for example, having the space viewable through Google Maps or Bing's Maps or other tools where you can actually visualize the port from, a map perspective could be very important to understand the connections. There are road signals. There are specific apps where you could perhaps visit the port virtually or schedule a visit in person to see the port and its structures. So here again, we have different types of answers. And once again, you have the other please specify section as well. I will stop here unless there are any other questions, because I do have 2 more slides and I don't want to go over time. If there are no questions, I will move back to the presentation. So here's a brief recap, and I think we've touched upon all these points very, very many times already, but we really want to emphasize that the self-assessment tool, the aim is to be a periodic tool so that you use on a yearly basis, at most every 2 years, considering that 2030 is only 6 years away, and that it is a holistic review of the activities. We've also explained several times that it is a pedagogic tool to learn about good practice and innovative ideas from other actors, but also on what the next steps are, as Jose mentioned, in terms of the answers, giving you an idea of what you can perhaps work on for the following review. It is also a tool that we hope can allow for an internal review and discussion with different stakeholders, but also internally. It is only for AIVP members, so hopefully this will make you even more sure and happy to be part of the AIVP. And it is a basis to further discussions with the port community and with local authorities. And our hope, obviously, is that this will help you in achieving the goals for 2030 that you have set yourself and that we have set you as well. How will we use the results? I have mentioned this as well previously, but this is not something we will publicize. We won't say the Port of Genoa, for example, scored 30%. We will not do this. Our aim is really to see the trends within our members, to see, let's say, the quality food goal is one of the weakest goals. Perhaps we need to highlight this more in our conferences or in publications in order to encourage our members to do more on the subject. If there are sufficient members that answer, we are also hoping to create a report of these trends. Are we seeing that a lot of ports are answering that they're developing ways in order to generate sustainable energy in the port area themselves? Perhaps this is something that we can highlight. Or if it's even more general, it could be of interest as well to our members. We will hopefully, in time, this will also allow us to start the discussion for what we envision post 2030. Another thing is we're hoping this is also another point of interaction with you, with our members, to have suggestions for good practices, for discussion, even for other suggestions. And as I mentioned, also, we hope to use this information to link members with each other. If we see that one port with a very similar structure and geographical area is struggling with one goal while another port is doing exceedingly well, perhaps we can put them in contact if both of them agree. And perhaps down the road, if there's enough interest, we could create a label, but the important point is that it is, for the moment, a tool free to our members, and we want to maintain this and use it for our members. I will move on unless there are any questions. Okay. And obviously, we don't want to just end it with results that you obtain and then compare it to the following year. We have different tools that we can either valorize your results with or your ideas with, or we can provide you with supports. And I just wanted to make a quick benchmark of what these are and remind you that we are here for you to also help you progress within the year, and not just let you say with the results that you have had. If you have done exceedingly well in one or more of the goals, please contact us with your good practice suggestions or with article suggestions or even interviews. We're open to this. As you all know, we have this weekly newsletter and we share various sources of information here. So here's a quick explanation also of what is a good practice. And as I've mentioned, we are in the progress of updating these and hopefully expanding them in the next coming months as well. The other thing, and I mentioned this at the very start, is that we have launched the AIVP Prize Antoine Ruffnac, which aims to valorize urban development projects that are in line with the Agenda 2030 goals. So perhaps if you have one project and through the questions you see that that this project might link with several agenda goals, look into the AIVP Prize Antoine Ruffnac. And if you have any questions regarding this, feel free to reach out to Lucille, who's also in the chat here and who introduced herself at the beginning. Although it's an urban redevelopment or development project, sorry, not redevelopment, we are aware that how many of our port members are working on the port city interface in order to develop new things. So we think that either a collaboration of port and city or through the port, we think that everyone can be interested in this prize. If you need our support, I would like you to remind you that as members of the AIVP, you are entitled to small benchmarks for free if it's less than 8 hours of work for us, or you can also ask for paid benchmarks if they're over a longer period of time or more in depth. And we also offer masterclasses if need be to put in contact members with each other on a specific subject. I see the chat has several questions. I'm just going to finish these 2 examples and then I will look at the questions. We are also hoping that once we've published the version for cities, that perhaps ports and cities for both members of the AIVP can come together and discuss their results in parallel, or even with only one of the members addressing these questions, that this can give a basis of discussion. And we are also happy to support you in this discussion if you want. And we also have an online associate degree if there are questions. However, for the moment, it's only in French and Spanish. So however, if you're interested, feel free to have a look. I will now take a look at the questions in the chat or the comments. I'm not sure what is going on.
I think it's general remarks about how to get more information, all these things.
Perfect. Okay, well, then I will open the floor to comments and questions. I know that we are running out of time, so any final remarks are welcome. Or questions?
If I may add my comment.
Yes.
I would like to, as first, to thank you about for this very clear explanation of this tool. I think it will be very useful for internal purposes, and it will help to give a straight way for authorities to starting to define a path for the reporting and the compliance for the 2030 year agenda. I found very interesting also the point highlighted by Jose, who said that options for the answers can be also opportunities to open new reasoning inside the authorities. And I think that will be crucial in order to develop solutions that will be effective.
Thank you. Hopefully this is the case, and I look forward to seeing what the Port Authority of Genoa does in terms of answering this questionnaire.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I can just make one quick comment before Maria Sol also leaves. I know this has been a lot of information. We know that. We have worked on this for 2 years, so we know it is something very complex. And the first plans can be a little bit intimidating. We know that. That's why we programmed this workshop. That's why we're adding as many support material as we can, as much support material as we can with videos and PDFs. Our advice is really to explore the tool, play around. We are at the beginning of the year. You can have access. You can go through all the questions. You can view one by one. You can make a test of answering and just saving without really validating. So this is really what in this stage we would encourage you to do. And then later come back to us if you want, if you need, So you can ask more questions and you can more directly say, okay, look, I don't understand this question, or I have a problem with this specific part or something of this kind. We're here for you. So you can always come back and ask more detailed questions. This is all I wanted to say.
Yes. Well, with this, it has been our hour and a half. So I invite those who need to leave, and I am happy to answer any more remaining questions. And yes, otherwise, please feel free to contact us. I believe Annabelle put it in the chat. The email for the assessment tool is assessment@aivp.org, or you can directly contact Jose or I if there are more specific questions or you just need help. And we're always happy to answer these questions either per email or in a call. So hopefully it will be a useful tool for you. And our hope is also to have some members respond to it before the Lisbon conference, which will take place in November, and perhaps already give some trends that we're seeing at this stage. But if this is not possible, it is not possible. However, hopefully it will be a useful tool for everyone.